Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Proline. It is, we're recording this in 2013 on December 31st, so we'll call it the last Proline of 2013, but it also will be the first Proline of 2014. And, of course, we're going to be focusing on the NFL playoffs this weekend. Some great stuff. First off, though, let's get you caught up with who's here. Jim Feist. You can see Jim on one portion of the screen. There's Sean Hess flexing. I'm Dave Koken. It's nice to have you guys with us. We will have our man of the street, Jeff Saad, from LVSS, coming along in a little bit with a free NFL total and some other good stuff. Guys, let's get everybody up to speed as to what's happening this weekend. Jim, you've been it's just been a really good season for you in the National Football League, steady as a rock. And just numbers continue to pile up, well over 60% in this latest run, well over 60%, including a big winner in the Steelers.
Well, Dave, thanks for mentioning that. The 2013 NFL season is one of the best I've had. It's been remarkable. I'm on a 37-20-22 run in the NFL, including the AFC North Game of the Year with the Steelers last week. Bowl weekend, including my College Bowl Game of the Year with Louisville, 31-20 winner. And here's the offer for this week. I got 28 days in January for $28, $1 a day. NFL playoffs, NBA, college hoops, the rest of the bowls, including the Auburn-Florida State game, all this for $28 just by calling 1-866-841-1655. 28 days, $28. If you can't afford $1 a day, you shouldn't be betting. Call 1-866-841-1655.
And that's true, actually.
I like that.
That is absolutely true. All right.
What can I say? If it comes into my mind, I'm going to say it because it's the truth. If you can't afford $1 a day, you shouldn't be betting. Even if you buy the damn picks and bet against them, I don't care. How can you not get $1 a day?
Jim, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was 16.
Well,
when I first got into this business.
Well, we want to point out, if you're 16, you can't sign up for that, okay?
Yeah, right.
We don't discriminate, Dave. We do not discriminate.
Well, we're going to get that disclaimer out of the way anyway. If you're 16, do not sign up. All right. I had a pretty good weekend because my NFL Game of the Year was on Sunday, and it was an easy winner. The New York Jets with a choice. They fell behind 7-0 to Miami and then just dominated the Dolphins for the rest of the game. So congratulations to everybody who was on for that. And just a little info as to how we do things here. The smart move for me, the real smart move would have been to have my bowl game of the year this weekend. In that way, I'd be able to capitalize on winning the Jets game of the year and do a lot of business on the bowl game of the year. Here's the problem. I liked the game earlier. I liked the game on New Year's Eve day, and I liked it a lot. I got some good information. That's the bowl game of the year, so it basically didn't get advertised here on Proline or anyplace else for that matter. But you can't come up with big games based on the schedule. You have to fire on the big games when it's time to fire on a big game, and that's how you win money at this. Now, Saturday, I've got a game circled in college basketball. I'm going to make it my first conference game of the year. First one this season. Conference play is getting underway. This is when you can start throwing out a lot of the stuff you saw in the preseason. Let's put it that way. I call it the preseason because a lot of coaches handle the early part of the college basketball season differently than they do once conference plays arrive. That's going to be part of a college basketball trifecta going on Saturday. You sign up today. I'm going to give you a bonus bowl and a high roller hoop play going tonight. So that's going to be 5 plays in all for $25. If you won with the Jets last weekend, here's a chance to win even more. Get all 5 of these games, get on them, and get the money. 5 big games, $25, including a conference game of the year in college basketball. 1-866-896-1629. That's 1-866-896-1629. Guys, we have a Twitter question of the week. And this is from Bill Cole in Naples, Florida. We've had a few Naples, Floridas. You can follow us on Twitter at Jim Feist Sports or on Facebook at Proline TV. And Bill Cole's question is, does NFL home field mean more in NFL playoffs to the odds makers? Sean, we haven't had a contribution from you yet this morning because you don't sell anything. So let's point this to you first. Is the NFL, I guess what he's asking is the playoff line influenced more by home field advantage than it is in the regular season?
Well, I think historically, just look at some of the teams that have won the Super Bowl. I mean, a lot of them are not number 1 seeds or even number 2 seeds. I mean, last year Baltimore won it, Dave, I think as a number 3 seed, if I'm correct, and they did a lot of their winning on the road once they won that first home game, and they were an underdog in the Super Bowl. I looked up a few things here. In fact, since it's going back to 2008, but you can go further back, just the last 5 years, the home dog is 6-7 straight up, 7-6 against the number, and the home favorite who's supposed to win these games is just 24-17 straight up, and only 20-21 against the number. I think the thing is the mindset of every coach, because now you're in the playoffs. If you lose, you go home. So there's no room for error, and I think Belichick is a good illustration of that. They play to at least stay even and not get blown out, stay ahead so they have a chance to win in the fourth quarter. And since that conservative approach is dominating, I mean, look what happened to Denver. Last year, Denver against Baltimore, and we all remember that game, at the end of each quarter, that game was tied. Baltimore's deal was to just hang in there, and they not only won the game straight up in overtime, but they went on to win the Super Bowl. So I personally think that the home field advantage is not near as prevalent in the playoffs, clearly, than it is in the playoff. It's definitely a big deal in regular season, not a big deal in the playoffs.
I agree. Right down the line, I think home field's worth a point less in the playoffs than it is in the regular season on the number. And I also think that it gets adjusted that way by the odds makers. They're not dumb. And you know, you've got, it's not I know that doesn't sound like a huge bargain, and it's not. It's only 1 point. But it is little things like that long term can have an influence on winning percentage. And you've seen it in the playoffs, as you mentioned, several years. And last year's team, they're a wild card. They snuck in the last week of the season. So they never played a single home game, and they won the whole thing. And it's not the first time that's happened. Jim?
Well, I think handicapping and odds making is done on a game by game basis for the most part. I mean, the standard is give 2 or 3 or 4 points to the home team, unless you're talking about a Seattle or the Saints, which you might give them 6 or 7 because of their tremendous records. Of course, this year Cincinnati has to fit into that mode as well because they were 8-0 straight up at home and 8-0 against the spread at home. So that's probably why you're looking at a 7-point line in the Cincinnati game over San Diego. But for the most part, these lower seed teams have been in the past few years underrated because these 5 and 6 seed teams have gone a long way in these playoffs. Now, the question was, does the odds maker adjust for that? Well, like you pointed out, Dave, the odds makers are not stupid. Bookmakers are not stupid. They make a lot of money. So you're looking at teams like Philadelphia, a 2.5-point favorite in this game over the Saints, who are absolutely horrendous on the road. So they are not, in my opinion, overrating or even giving enough value to Philadelphia in that game. When you look at the fact that the Saints are -5 in point differential on the road, 1-7 against the spread, against a team that has absolutely been red hot, just played a playoff game on the road against Dallas and won the game. Now, they didn't play exceptionally well in that game, but it was part of their defense that held up and got a couple turnovers. Obviously, they were playing against a backup quarterback, but, Orton and Romo are probably going to make the same number of mistakes anyway, the way they play the game, although Orton played very well with 353 yards passing. So I think it's an individual situation. Now you look at the Kansas City-Indianapolis game. A couple of weeks ago, Indianapolis goes up to Kansas City and just blew them off the ball. I mean, they blew them out. Last week, Kansas City rested all their star players. Indianapolis, for some reason, and I'm not sure why, they played all out, and they didn't rest anybody. I'm not sure why they did that. It makes absolutely no sense to me because unless they figured Buffalo was going to beat New England, there was nothing to play for. I have no idea why a coach would do that, risking their players being hurt. They're already without Reggie Wayne. They don't have that much of a running game. I mean, it made no sense to me, but they did it anyway. Andy Reid, who's a very experienced coach, been around a long time, you got to give him a lot of respect for what he's done this year. Now, granted, they played a very soft schedule early. They were 9-0. They have not been that strong down the stretch, but they rested everybody. So you have a rested team on the road against a team that didn't rest anybody, and they have revenge. Now, I'm not saying that's the right side of the game. What I'm saying is, what's the right line in the game? Indianapolis 2.5 at home against a team that's 7-1 ATS on the road and rested, and they have revenge. So I don't know that this is the right line or not, but 2.5. They're not jacking up these home field numbers at all this year. I think they realize that lower seeds have gone far in the past few years, and they've lowered these numbers. And except for the Cincinnati game, all these home fields are getting less value.
Sean, let's stay with that.
And justify.
I was going to say, let's stay with that game.
I'm going to say, and justifiably so. I mean, in recent memory, right? You remember when New England went undefeated? You remember the last game of the season they played was against the Giants? It was a slugfest, and the Giants were already in the playoffs, and Coughlin played everybody, and yet the Giants on the road went all the way to the Super Bowl, and guess who they beat in the Super Bowl? No rest, no nothing. They laid it out on the field, and they beat some pretty good teams that year to get into that Super Bowl and won it straight up. Same thing with Green Bay the year they won it. I believe they were a number 6 seed, and not only did they manage to win the last game, no rest, but somebody had to lose, and I can't remember who it was. I think they beat the Bears. Same thing. They had to win on the road, no rest and nothing, went to the Super Bowl, and I believe they beat Pittsburgh that year. And I think one year when Pittsburgh, don't quote me on this, I think it was a number 6 seed. It might have been number 5, but I think the last time Pittsburgh won a Super Bowl, I believe they were also a number 5 or 6 seed.
All right. Well, Jim got
this rest thing, and
there's no question that momentum plays a big part in all sports.
Huge.
The question in my mind is, logically speaking, we've had a lot of injuries this year in the NFL, as we always do, but this year even worse. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Arguably, different reasons are debated. But when you have absolutely nothing to gain, it's almost like putting money on a roulette game when the best thing you can do is get your money back. So if there's no upside to making a decision, your risk reward is too high for me. So logically speaking, I'd rather go the route of resting players and having players not be at risk of getting hurt. However, as you point out, John, sometimes these guys roll the dice and they get away with it. That doesn't mean it's smart. Just like not all coaches make smart decisions. Sometimes they get bit in the ass for it, and other times they get away with it. And I think when you don't rest players when you should, I think you're rolling the dice for no upside reason whatsoever.
Well, let me throw this in. I think it matters about what a team's form is when you rest them. You go back to the year the Colts screwed things up, where they were sitting at 14-0. They shouldn't have rested the play. They really shouldn't have rested the players because they had so much momentum. The risk versus reward there was that they might slow down the momentum, and they did. You contrast that with last week. The Chiefs have not been playing well. They need a week off. That, to me, was a smart move by Andy Reid last week. They're not. If this team was on a high, then there's no way I sit them down. I want to get them out there and keep that positive flow going. The Chiefs have gone from 9-0 to they'd won one game in 5 weeks, right? That team needed a break. So, it's all depends on the circumstances, and we're kind of going into that Chiefs-Colts game now. I really like what Andy Reid did last week in looking at the way things were with his football team and determining this is a good time to sit back and give these guys a break. And, by the way, it works out. Talk about rolling the dice and having it come up the right way for you. They didn't win the game, but they probably should have. The NFL, in its infinite wisdom, still has part-time officials who absolutely suck on the field, and they either didn't know the rule or didn't call it properly at the end of the game. San Diego, 7 men lined up on one side of the long snapper. That's not legal. They blew the call. Should have been a 5-yard penalty, and I pretty much can tell you Ryan Suckup probably would not have missed the replay field goal, if you will. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are out of the playoffs because of the NFL officials. It's as simple as that. But I digress from that. Getting back to the Chiefs.
No, hey, Dave, what about the Dallas-Philadelphia game?
Yeah, just to finish up the thought, I don't want to go off on a tangent here. The Chiefs actually benefited in another way from last week because all those backups who got to play went out and played a tremendous game, played well enough to basically knock out San Diego on their home field. They're going to be feeling so great and confident right now in the practice sessions this week. I think the Chiefs have a chance to do a little bit of a turnaround here. I like them going into Indianapolis. I agree with what you said, Jim. Congratulations, Colts. You beat up Jacksonville. It didn't get you anything, okay? You're still exactly where you were beforehand.
Hey,
their chances of moving up last week and getting a bye were remote, to put it mildly. I would have given some of those players the week off. But maybe their coach is looking at it and saying, you know what? We got hot coming out of this Kansas City game, and I want to stay that way. So I'm going to go out there and put these guys in the field. So I'm not going to completely dismiss what he did. But I will say, and I said this all year, I think the Colts, it's a broken record. I think they're a lucky football team. Maybe the luck continues this weekend. It's been basically a 2-year roll where they've been outperforming their metrics on a weekly basis, and yet they continue to do it. But I got to tell you, at first glance, and I'm not locking myself into these because it's early in the week, but at first glance, I think the Chiefs are the right side in this game. Sean?
I'm just going to say, I'm just going to end this conversation for me as far as the refs go, and this is just a blatant bad call. But what about when the Eagles have the ball late, 40 seconds goes down to 25 just like that, and they don't pick that up?
Nope.
And Philadelphia had to face that pen. Yeah, they're terrible. You can't do that. You just can't, but they do it all the time.
It's the worst officiated sport we have among the major sports. There's not even close. It stinks, and I think part of it is that they don't have full-time officials.
I agree.
Because there's times when they don't know the rules, and that to me I'm not saying the whole crew has to be full-time. I understand logistically that would be tough. It would cost a fortune. But the head man for each game, the referee, those should be from a full-time pool. Those guys shouldn't be doing anything else but refereeing and doing doing whatever preparation is necessary to make sure they know what they're doing come out Sunday. Yeah, all these myths have been blown up about how good these guys are. Remember we all grew up, we'd see somebody blow a call. It didn't matter what sport it was. Well, they get them right 95% of the time. That was the old myth.
Oh.
Holy cow, has that been blown up? They barely get them right 50% of the time on close calls. Barely 50%. In fact, there's one official this year, I think it's Revelo or somebody, 58% of the challenges have been reversed. That's a lot of calls.
Yeah.
It's inexcusably bad. Okay. Anything else for the Chiefs and Colts, guys?
Well, I'm with you on the Chiefs, I can tell you that.
I would just like to say the AFC is, in my opinion, the AFC is weaker than the NFC. And the Colts and the Chiefs very likely are the weakest clubs out of the AFC.
Yeah.
They are playing each other. And the only reason I knock the Chiefs, even though they have a great record, is because they played such a soft schedule early in the season. The Colts, I say, are a weak team because they've lost too many players. When they lost Reggie Wayne, that was a big loss for them. And that's another reason I really criticize the coach for not resting his players last week. These are the two weakest teams in the AFC, in my opinion, and I don't expect them to go very far after this game.
All right, let's
Go ahead,
Sean.
I was just going to say, I got a little playoff trend if you want. It's come up a number of times here since January, playoffs only now, since January the 22nd of 2012, the road dog coming off a road game. How about 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against the number? Chiefs got an excellent road record. You cannot deny. We talked about coaches earlier, Jim. Andy Reid has basically turned this team around, so I'm not going to question what he's doing because he's put them where they are, and they're doing it with pretty much the same team they had last year. So for me, it's the Chiefs straight up.
All right, let's check in with our man on the street, Jeff Saad from LVSS. Jeff has been providing us with free NFL totals all year long, I should say, and he's got another one for this weekend. Go ahead,
Thanks,
Jeff.
guys. Got a free pick coming up in bowl action, but first get the January NFL playoffs and 4 weeks of basketball with Las Vegas Sports Services, just $30. That will include the wild cards this weekend, my NBA TV game of the month, and my first college basketball game of the year on Saturday. 30 days of action for $30 with LVSS. Call 1-866-575-8916. Free play comes in Friday's Orange Bowl between Clemson and Ohio State. This is a high total, but Clemson has an underrated defense, 17th in the nation in points allowed, 21 points per game. The Tigers are 7-2 under in bowl games. They come off a 31-17 loss to South Carolina, and the under is 16-6 following a defeat. Ohio State is a run-first offense, 21st in the nation in points allowed, on a 4-0 run under the total in bowl games, plus 8-3-1 under playing on natural grass. Your free play, take Clemson and Ohio State to stay under the total. Once again, get the January NFL playoffs and 4 weeks of basketball at the LVSS for just $30. That will include the wild cards this weekend, my NBA TV game of the month, and my first college basketball game of the year on Saturday. 30 days of action for $30 with LVSS. Call 1-866-575-8916.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Good luck this weekend. We have free plays every day. Jim Feist and myself, and it's about the easiest deal in the world to get these free plays. You don't even have to call anybody. All you need to do is text. If you want mine, text Kokin, C-O-K-I-N, to 313131. Been on an amazing roll. Again, I mean, all year long, these have been tremendous. Up over 100 games since I started doing it. And as I'm recording this, last 12 daily free plays, 10 wins, 1 loss, 1 push. And they're free. All you have to do is text Kokin, C-O-K-I-N, to 313131. And Jim, same story with you. It's real easy to get a daily free selection.
Absolutely. Just text WINNER, W-I-N-N-E-R, to 313131. We're going to send you a free play right to your cell phone each and every day. That's WINNER to 313131.
All right, guys. Well, here we go with what I will say is a more attractive matchup, or the most attractive matchup of this opening week NFL playoff slate. Aaron Rodgers is back. The Green Bay Packers are in the playoffs, and they are at home facing the 49ers. You win your division, you get rewarded, and that's the way it is. So the Packers, despite the fact they've not had a great season, they are at home against the 49ers. Jim, let's start with you on this game. There's no question that from a headline standpoint, this is the big game. It's the traditional power game, and it should be a lot of fun.
Well, I tell you what, you look at this, you got a 12-4 team on the road against an 8-7 team because they won their weaker division, and this team happens to be in the NFC West, which has Seattle in it, and they got this great record. Well, they're favored on the road. They're favored by 2.5 on the road against Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers is in the really frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. This is a very interesting game because the dynamics of this game are really incredible. You got a very strong rushing team. Both of them can run the ball pretty well. A very much better passing team, of course, with Green Bay. But their defense is just horrendous. I mean, their defense is 24th against the pass and 25th against the rush. So where their strength is, and their offset on the other side, you got the defense for the 49ers, seventh against the pass, and 4th against the run. You add those two numbers together, you got 11. You add the other two numbers together on the Packers side, you get 49. So it's an incredible difference in defensive statistics. There's no question Aaron Rodgers is top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league, and Colin Kaepernick is still a question mark. I think he regressed a little bit this year, but maybe he regressed a little bit because some of his wide receivers are out and they just weren't getting any separation. He's a very talented young man. I don't believe it's going to be bother San Francisco to be in Green Bay in this cold weather. Kaepernick comes from Reno, and he played in cold weather a lot. They play a conservative game most of the time, and they know how to run. They're very physical on defense. It's a tough game to handicap because you have such a disparity in quarterback talent. Rodgers is so good. I mean, look what he did last week against Chicago. He was a miracle worker there. there was a couple calls that went their way. That strange fumble touchdown was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. But they were playing against one of the weakest defenses in football last week when they beat the Chicago Bears. That was a terrible defense all year long, and they sent them home packing. So this is going to be a hell of a game. Yeah, it sure should be. I mean, the idea of the San Francisco and Green Bay matching up it's terrific. The Packers were. I had my big game on Sunday with the Jets. I'm sure glad I didn't have any of the luck in that game that I had in the Bears game. I lost the Bears, and that is without question the worst beat I took in the NFL this year. You got that goofy play where the ball's lying on the ground that Jim mentioned, and then the end of the game, the Packers are they're trying to set up a field goal, and somehow the Bears let Cobb get behind everybody, and they get a touchdown, and that's the end of that. That was a ridiculous loser. But, so lucky win by the Packers, but it's a win, and they've got nothing whatsoever to lose at this point. So they become a dangerous football team. The problem is I just don't think they're that good. That division this year, there's a couple of really bad divisions in football this year. We know about the NFC East, which basically until the Eagles got hot, nobody wanted, and it's a soft division. And the NFC Central actually is even worse. I don't think there's a real power team in this division. The Lions are their own worst enemies. The Vikings were terrible. I think the Vikings were a miracle last year as they got in the playoffs. The Bears couldn't play any defense at all. And the Packers, I know they lost Aaron Rodgers for a series of games. That certainly had an impact on them. But I never looked at this team this year and saw real powerhouse out there. I think they're a decent team, but I don't think they're great. I think the 49ers are the better squad. It doesn't excite me to lay points on the road. So I don't know whether I'm going to do that or not. But if you're just asking me who the better team is and who should win, Sean, I have to go 49ers.
You know something, Dave? Everything on paper isn't worth anything until they play the game. I mean, as a handicapper a million years ago told me, point spreads are really about projection. This is what we think it should be. And we've been around a long time. I mean, you've seen a home dog of 3 win by 25. Point spread wasn't even close. I can give you several illustrations of it. You know it as much about as I do. Everything by the paperwork, by the book says San Francisco ought to win this by 20, going away, wire to wire, no problem. Everything says that. And I think Green Bay was lucky last week to win that game. Really lucky to win it. No question about any of that. Every once in a while, I don't always play my cards. Bird lands on my shoulder. Hunch bet. Hey, come on. Seattle at 7-9, a few years ago, beats New Orleans straight up at home as a home dog. We've seen, and then they get annihilated the next day. I didn't think Aaron Rodgers looked all that sharp, but there's no doubt his being on the field just makes that team play better. Plus, they've had some serious injuries in the defense. I cannot make a case for Green Bay at all. Should lose 30-0 in the first half. But I'm taking the Packers. Listen, I mean, look at some of the road records. San Francisco, 6-2 straight up, 6-1-1 against the bookie. Green Bay hasn't covered a game at home their last 5 times. Why am I doing this? A hunch. I think Green Bay's the side here. I think the refs help them out. Who knows? And it's going to, you know what the high is in Green Bay? The high is going to be 12 degrees. No bikini girls out there. No bikini girls. I think Green Bay somehow, some way gets a miracle win. I'm just going to call it.
Yeah, it wouldn't, it wouldn't shock me. And that's part of the reason that, I just said, I think the 49ers get there, but I can't say I'm convinced. And I doubt very much that that's going to be a play for me on the weekend. I think it might be, just an opinion or something small. All right. Let's get to the best bets and a recap of what we've got coming up this weekend. Once again, I hit my my NFL game of the year with the Jets. That was an easy winner against the Dolphins. Love it when they come in like that. And now you've got college basketball conference play underway in earnest. I've had a very good start to the college basketball season. Very, very happy with the way things have gone in college hoops. And I've got one game circled this weekend. Conference play is here, and I think this is a matchup. I know my side's been kind of waiting for this game. So my first conference game of the year is going to go on Saturday. You're also going to get a trifecta. of college basketball plays, a bonus bowl, and a high roller hoop play going tonight. So that's 5 plays in all, and the cost for all 5 is just $25, and that does include that big game. So make the call and get in 1-866-896-1629. That's 1-866-896-1629, and I will take the Chiefs as my best bet of the games we talked about. Sean, what's your best bet?
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. You look at Indianapolis's record. They beat really very good teams. I don't think Kansas City's that great a team, but I have that trend I tell you about, and that's enough for me. And I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm going to take them on the money line. It's a short number.
All right. Well, Jim, the big role in the NFL throughout basically the entire regular season, and now it's time to get it done in the playoffs. So a best bet and details on a great weekend package from you.
Well, Dave, we haven't talked about any totals or anything, but I look for this the Kansas City-Indianapolis game in perfect conditions indoors. I look for this game to go over the total. And the reason for that is I think Kansas City has opened up their offense from the conservative play calling that they had early in the season. They have started to score more points, and their defense has started to give up more points as well as they began playing better and better teams. Andrew Luck has been unstoppable in the time that he's been in the league, very short time. He's an incredible athlete. That's what he does. He's going to move the ball down the field. They're going to score some points. I look for both these teams to go over this total, and that's my best bet for the show. And my offer to the people out there, and I was kidding before, but if you're going to bet 28 days, if you're in this game, you're listening to this video, you come to this website, 28 days, $28. Come on now. Come on, man. This is time to step up. 28, believe me, the $28 you pay for this doesn't make me rich. It really doesn't change my life. But
Jim, will you loan me $28?
28 days, $28. Excuse me, sir?
Would you loan me $28? Would you loan me $28?
I already owe you 100 lunches. What are you talking about?
Boy, you're right about that. I'm surprised you put that out. I'm proud.
I owe you 100 lunches. I know that. But this serious business, 28 days, $28. This covers the NFL playoffs, the NBA, the college hoops, the rest of the bowls, including the Auburn-Florida State game. Call 1-866-841-1655. That's 1-866-841-1655. We will win in January. Be with us.
All right, that's going to put a wrap on the NFL edition of Proline. Don't forget, there's a college version as well, so make sure and hunt around the website and find that and get more pearls of wisdom, or at least something approaching that from the guys. Happy New Year, everybody. For Sean S. and Jim Feist, I'm Dave Koken. See you later.
Happy New Year.